What's next for Spider-Man after No Way Home? While we don't know that, we might be able to get some hints by looking back at Peter Parker's MCU journey from the beginning. Here's the entire Spider-Man MCU story explained. Surprisingly, Peter Parker's first appearance in the MCU doesn't come in Captain America Civil War. Instead, that honor goes to Iron Man 2, where Tony Stark saves a little kid during the climax of the film. While Tony's flying in to stop Ivan Vanko from using weaponized hammer drones to attack the attendants at the Stark Expo, a young boy in an Iron Man mask raises his toy gauntlet to stop one of the drones before getting some help. Fans have long speculated that the masked child was actually a young Peter Parker years before Marvel got the go-ahead from Sony to officially add Spider-Man to the MCU. After all, the Stark Expo takes place in Queens, and Peter is a longtime science geek who wouldn't miss the opportunity to go to an event like that. Tom Holland told the Huffington Post in 2017 that as far as he and MCU head honcho Kevin Feige are concerned, that unnamed boy is definitely Peter Parker. No wonder Peter Parker grows up to have so much hero worship for Tony Stark in the modern-day MCU. By the time Spider-Man Homecoming hit theaters, audiences had seen Peter's Uncle Ben die on the big screen twice in 2 different franchises. 3 times if we count the new perspective on the murder portrayed in Spider-Man 3. So it's no wonder that the filmmakers of Spider-Man Homecoming chose to skip over that particular part of Spider-Man's origin story. That said, there's been enough hints and references to make it clear that the MCU version of Peter definitely had an Uncle Ben that he lost at some point. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Peter's luggage looks secondhand and bears the initials BFP. The luggage almost certainly belonged to one Benjamin Franklin Parker before Peter used it. According to Spider-Man Homecoming, writers Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley, an earlier draft of the film would have seen Aunt May explicitly mention her dearly departed husband. With all that, we can peg Uncle Ben's death at around 6 months before the events of Captain America Civil War, since that film shows Peter telling Tony that he's had his powers for 6 months. Peter even indirectly mentions that he blames himself for Uncle Ben's so far mysterious death by saying that,
"Look, when you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you."
In other words, with great power comes great responsibility. In 2015's Ant-Man, Scott Lang's titular tiny hero runs afoul of Sam Wilson, the Falcon, while sneaking into Avengers headquarters. Naturally, it leads to the 2 superheroes battling each other in the classic Marvel style. Although neither hero walks away the obvious victor, Scott gains the device he's after and something else that he wasn't expecting: Sam Wilson's respect. At the end of the film, Scott's friend Luis tells him that his cousin Ignacio met this crazy fine writer chick who actually knows Falcon, and in Luis's summation of the conversation, we learn that Sam's been looking for Ant-Man. While he was looking for one bug-themed superhero, he very nearly finds another.
Well, we got everything nowadays. We got a guy who jumps, we got a guy who swings, we got a guy who crawls up the walls. You gotta be more specific.
There are plenty of superheroes in the Marvel Universe who jump and swing around the city, but there's only one wall crawler that casual fans would be likely to recognize. In conjunction with his appearance in Captain America Civil War, we can infer that Spidey started operating as an official local superhero during the events of Ant-Man, even if the bigger media outlets hadn't yet noticed him. 6 months after Peter gets his powers, Tony drops by Aunt May's apartment to meet the mysterious arachnid-themed superhero who's been showing up on YouTube. Iron Man adds him to his team of Avenger-hunting Avengers as part of his ongoing effort to take down Bucky. So Peter heads to Berlin, does some sightseeing, and annoys Tony Stark's bodyguard and pal Happy Hogan. Then he gets a costume upgrade courtesy of Tony Stark and fights against Captain America's team. Spider-Man acquits himself nicely in the fight, briefly trapping Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and even helping Iron Man and War Machine take down a giant Ant-Man. However, the fight ends with Tony's best friend, Rhodey, wounded by friendly fire. As for Peter, he suffers a pretty frightening fall, although he ultimately emerges unscathed. After the events of Captain America Civil War, Peter heads back to Queens with his new, more technologically advanced spider suit. Tony tells Peter that the Avengers will let him know if there are any future missions, and in the meantime, he should go to school and focus on being a local hero. 2 months later, while swinging around on his after-school crime-fighting rounds, he accidentally interrupts an ATM heist organized by crooks who are using high-tech weapons. After a phone call report with Happy goes ignored, Peter follows up on the weapons dealers and gets into a fight with their leader, the Vulture. Tony sends a drone to bail Peter out and give him yet another talking to about how Peter should stop trying to fight supervillains. Peter half listens, mostly to the parts about how his suit has a ton of capabilities that he didn't know about, and gets his buddy Ned to hack the suit and give him full access. Round 2 at the Vulture in Washington, D.C. ends with Peter trapped in a warehouse for the night, and when he heads off for round 3 on a ferry ride in New York, it turns out that Iron Man and the FBI had organized a sting operation that Peter inadvertently interrupts. Disappointed in his protege, Tony takes back the suit, and Peter recommits to his regular life and asks his crush Liz to prom. Unfortunately, Liz's dad is the Vulture, forcing Peter to take him down in his original low-tech suit before the winged villain can steal a ton of valuable Stark tech. Spider-Man succeeds, Vulture goes to prison, Liz moves to Oregon with her mom, and Tony offers Peter a place on the Avengers roster if he wants. Instead, Peter turns him down, choosing to focus on being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for a while. Peter's decision to stay close to the ground and look out for the little guy lasts about as long as it takes to watch the credits for Spider-Man Homecoming. When Thanos' Black Order invade Earth in search of the Infinity Stones in Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man hops right in to help in defending Earth. Doctor Strange is kidnapped by the Black Order's Ebony Maw, and Peter chases after him, hitching a ride on the Maw's spaceship before it flies away completely. Tony quickly joins him and provides Spidey with the even more high-tech supersuit last seen at the end of Homecoming. Spidey and Iron Man free Doctor Strange, blast Ebony Maw out into space, and land on Titan, Thanos' home planet. They're quickly joined by some of the Guardians of the Galaxy. The heroes prep to fight Thanos, who soon arrives to take Doctor Strange's Time Stone to add to his Infinity Gauntlet. The heroes put up a valiant effort, but their plan goes awry, and Thanos teleports to Earth after nabbing the Time Stone. Soon after, he gets the Mind Stone from Vision, puts it all together, and snaps his fingers, causing half of all life in the universe to fade away. Unfortunately, Peter's 50-50 probability comes out on the negative side, and he turns to dust in Tony's arms on an alien planet.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know. Hurry. I don't want to go. I don't want to go, sir. Please. Please, I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
After Thanos kills off half of the universe, the remaining half are left to mourn their fallen friends and family. Unfortunately for Peter, it doesn't seem like there are many left to remember him. For the 5 years between Thor killing Thanos in the beginning of Avengers Endgame and when Captain America gets the gang back together, it seems like the only one left to mourn Peter is Tony Stark. He even keeps a framed picture of his young protege in the kitchen of his cabin home. Luckily for Spider-Man, Tony eventually feels guilty enough to rejoin the Avengers. Once he's back on the team, the Avengers head back in time to steal the Infinity Stones before Thanos could destroy them in the present timeline and reconstruct another Infinity Gauntlet. And with one snap of Hulk's mighty hand, the dusted half of the universe is restored exactly how they were when they disappeared. Thanos from a previous timeline heads to the present in order to re-snap everything into oblivion, but every superhero or superhero-adjacent character stands in his way, including Spider-Man. Peter joins the fight, meets some of his new superhero peers, and then watches as Tony Stark gives his life to dust Thanos' crew with a snap of his own. After all that space alien craziness, it's back to normalcy for everyone's favorite wall crawler in Spider-Man Far From Home. With his schoolmates recovering from, being dead for 5 years, Peter joins a class trip to Europe. He's looking forward to a relaxing vacation to decompress from all of that and maybe confess his burgeoning romantic feelings for MJ. Instead, he's quickly embroiled in a fight against multiversal elementals alongside Nick Fury, Maria Hill, and the superhero from another universe, Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. To make things worse, Peter's struggling to live up to Iron Man's legacy, a job that seems all the more difficult when he receives a pair of high-tech sunglasses from Tony that give the young hero control over a ludicrous amount of information and technology. Desperate for a mentor, Peter gives up his sunglasses to Beck, whose magic powers and big brother attitude seem to make him a better successor to Tony than Peter could ever hope to be. Unfortunately, Beck's running a con on Peter and Nick Fury. He's not magic. He's not from another world, and he's definitely not a superhero. Peter learns the truth and eventually defeats Mysterio, with the villain seemingly dying in the final battle. Spidey returns to New York, having saved the day once again, and everything seems to be going well. Until, that is, J. Jonah Jameson of the DailyBugle.net leaks Mysterio's dying confession and reveals to the entire world that
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker.
Spider-Man No Way Home picks up right where Spider-Man Far From Home leaves off. Peter and MJ are in the middle of New York trying to digest that Peter's secret identity has been revealed to the world. Peter hopes this will all die down, but he's shocked to see his home surrounded by the press. It's not long before the Department of Damage Control arrests him and interrogates MJ, Ned, and Aunt May. However, thanks to Ace Attorney Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, the charges are dropped. Peter even goes back to school where he's met with a mixed response. Peter tells MJ and Ned that they just need to ride this out for a few months until they graduate and all go to MIT together. Unfortunately, the controversy leads the college and every other college they apply to reject the trio outright. This leads to a crazy plan. Peter initially approaches Doctor Strange and asks him to go back in time so he could prevent Mysterio from ruining his friends' lives. Strange offers a spell instead that would make people forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. The spell proceeds, but Peter can't leave well enough alone, constantly interrupting Strange as he casts the spell to add a number of exceptions. The spell goes awry, but Strange seems to contain it. However, the spell wasn't totally contained. While trying to talk a representative from MIT into changing her mind, Peter is attacked by Dr. Octopus, the villain from Spider-Man 2. When a pumpkin bomb appears, Strange teleports Peter back to his sanctum. Somehow, Peter has started drawing in people from other multiverses that know his identity. Strange sends him to track them down. Peter captures Electro, the villain from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, as well as the Sandman from Spider-Man 3. Strange captures the Lizard, and the tortured Norman Osborn accepts Peter's help. Strange plans to send them back to their realities, but things soon got more complicated. Aunt May convinces Peter that the captured villains need help and he can't simply send them off to die. He succeeds with Dr. Octopus, but Norman Osborn reverts to being the Green Goblin and persuades the others to once again target Peter. As the villains scatter, the Goblin kills Aunt May, leaving Peter a wreck.
This is all my fault. I can't save everyone.
In searching for Spider-Man, Ned uses Strange's sling ring and accidentally finds the Andrew Garfield version from The Amazing Spider-Man. Trying again, Ned locates the Tobey Maguire version from the original Spider-Man series. The two Spider-Men track down Holland's Peter and give him a pep talk. Afterwards, the trio of Spider-Men draw the villains into a battle at the Statue of Liberty in an effort to cure them once and for all. It almost works out, but the Green Goblin reappears and destroys the apparatus that contains Strange's botched spell. The multiverse starts cracking open as Peter has to be restrained from killing the Goblin. He gets the cure, but Peter is left with a terrible decision. To save the world, Peter has to let Doctor Strange cast the spell again, this time with no exceptions. Peter says goodbye to Ned and MJ and vows to track them down and make them remember him. When the time comes, however, Peter can't do it. He sees MJ and Ned both make it into MIT. Having finally learned the importance of responsibility, Peter gets his own apartment and continues his career as Spider-Man with an uncertain future. There's one last loose end, however. Eddie Brock, rather than joining in on any of the conflict, spends his time on the MCU's Earth at a bar. Just before the spell pulls him back into his universe, he leaves a single drop of the Venom symbiote in the MCU reality. With the announcement of another sequel in development, this extra-dimensional visitor may well become a problem for Holland's Spider-Man. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about Spider-Man are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.